Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of JT Talks Jobs. This is the show that teaches you everything school didn't about job search and career growth. And today we are going to have a good time, my friends, because we're talking about hobby careers, also known as side hustles. I am a big fan of the idea of everybody, yes, everybody, having some sort of hobby career or side hustle. I happen to have a couple of them myself, which people are always surprised to hear, but they're really, really important. I think they're a very healthy thing to have for your career. And that's why I want to introduce you to the concepts today and help you start to think about what you could do for your side hustle or your hobby career. So very excited to be talking about that with all of you today. But as always, before we get going, I want to remind you that we have one of the most incredible free resource pages out there. So if you have not stopped by yet and picked up one or more of our free tutorials or videos, please go over and check out the resource page. I know my team is sharing the link with you right now. They're wonderful tools and we're so proud of them, and they're helping lots of people, whether it helps you or maybe you know somebody that's trying to get ahead, make a career change, having a trauma with their job search or their interview prep or their resume or their cover letter. Whatever the case may be, I'm pretty sure we got a free resource for it. So get over there, grab yours and pay it forward and share it with a friend, okay? Awesome. All right. So let's get down to the business of talking about hobby careers and side hustles, especially the idea of starting one right now. Yes, right now in the middle of a pandemic. You will see. So I always like to set up and explain why I think it's so important. I began this by saying I think everyone should have one, that I have several myself. There are three main reasons why you should start a hobby career or side hustle. First of all, good news, it's something you can't fail at. You can't fail at this. That's because there's no hardcore expectations. It's not a make or break situation. Your entire income isn't set to rely upon it. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be an activity that brings you joy, that teaches you something that's interesting. There's no failing. I have a writing partner. His name is Dale Doughton, and we've written a syndicated column together for Hearst for many, many years. And one of the first things he said to me is, JT, experiments never fail. And I thought, that is genius. He is absolutely genius. If you have a hobby career, it's nothing more than an experiment. Experiments can't fail because you learn from them. And if you learn something, then you win. Plain and simple. So hobby careers are great to have because, again, fail free. The second reason you want one is because it teaches you how to create an income or earn some money doing something you enjoy. And for a lot of people, that isn't the case right now. People are in jobs and doing work that, pays the bills, but they don't necessarily get a lot of joy or satisfaction out of it. Before the crisis even hit, there were staggering studies that showed that more than 70% of the workforce was dissatisfied and not fully engaged in their work, which meant they didn't enjoy it. So why wouldn't we dabble and explore a little bit in terms of how we could do something and spend our time in a way that's fun and actually gives us money too? I mean, that's a win-win in my opinion. And then the third reason is that it gives you a new perspective on your job search. Yes, and of course, I'm bringing it all the way back to job search and career growth because that's what I'm about. I have found that when people start their own side hustle or hobby career, they start to learn basic business principles. You have to start to think about sales and marketing and operations, all these things that we don't usually think about when we're an employee, right? When we're an employee, the business does that. The company does that. Your manager does that. You just do your job. But when you start to learn business principles and how a business works together, it changes your perspective on your own work. So I will tell you that I love hiring people who have a side hustle. And people are so shocked by that. They'll say, but wait, aren't you worried that their side hustle is going to eventually become their full-time job? If they're successful enough to make that happen, good for them. Because that means I'm getting a really good worker. You know why? Because they now understand how my business runs. So they're going to apply that thought process to their own job. I have found people that have side hustles, they're better workers, and they have more respect for what goes into running a company. And for all the people that have ever run a business out there, you know what I'm talking about. You have a whole new healthy respect for what it takes for a business to survive and thrive, especially right now in a pandemic. I mean, 2 out of 3 startups fail. Running a business is extremely hard. So if you can understand that and relate to it, you are going to be so much more attractive to employers. You really are, because they're going to tell in the way that you interview with them and the way that you talk and approach your work that you get it. And that's key. It really is. So there's very, very good reasons for everyone to start a hobby, career / side hustle. So I'm going to break it down. I told you 6 steps today. And this session is ideal for people who just don't even know where to start, right? Some of you may have already have an idea. And my simple answer to you is go do. Just go do. Experiment, learn, grow, build your business. But today is for this person that's like, I don't even know where I would begin, right? So the first step in the process is to make a list of interest. And a great way to do this is to sit down and say, when I'm not at work and when I don't have, chores to do or things in my life, what do I do with my free time? What are all the things I do with my free time? Okay. So list that out, but I don't want you to stop there. I then want you to go to your friends, your family, your parents, if they're still around, aunts, uncles, whoever, and say, when I was growing up, what were some of the things I'm really passionate about? Or when you look at me, what do you think are things that I'm really good at outside of my work that I really like? Or if there was something that you were going to hire me for that wasn't my current job, what would you hire me to do? And these are the kinds of questions you want to ask friends and family. It'll shock you. It will shock you. I had a client do this when she was trying to figure this out. And all her friends came back and said, oh my gosh, I would totally hire you to do my makeup. And she said, what? They said, yeah, your makeup's always beautiful. It always looks phenomenal. I've always wanted to know how to do your makeup. I would love it if you taught me that. She was floored, absolutely floored. I knew another guy that he went out and asked this, and they said, oh my gosh, I would totally hire you to organize everything in my house. He was like, what? And they said, yeah, everything in your house is so neat. You have like your attic and your garage. Everything is so well planned out and logical. I don't know how you've wrapped your head around that. And the reason I say that is they each said, what would that look? And I guarantee you're going to do it too. See, the things that we're really good at that other people admire, we have developed those over a lifetime. We have been experimenting and gaining these skills to the point that they don't feel special to us. We don't think about it. We just do it. And so because it doesn't feel special, we assume everybody can do it, that they just choose not to. Never crosses our mind that they actually don't know how to and that they might pay good money for it. So this is why you want to ask people, what would you hire me to do if I wasn't doing my job? Or what do you come to me for advice for? You will be shocked. You will be so surprised at what people say. And it's going to spark all sorts of ideas beyond your passions and your interests and your hobbies, right? The other reason I have you go back and ask parents is because sometimes we forget, like, what were we obsessed with when we were little? And they can tell you things and it sparks these memories again that might make you go, gee, I wonder why I was in love with that. Maybe I should go back and look at that and explore that again. We need help. We need outside perspective in order to get a nice, big, healthy list of interests and areas of possibility. Okay? All right, moving on. Step number 2. Now this gets really interesting. So you would make this list, and then next to it, you explore the pain or pleasure points of participating in these interests. So what do I mean by that? So any of these things that come up, you ask yourself, what pain does this interest, this hobby, this activity alleviate? Or what kind of pleasure, happiness does it elicit? Because seriously, all products and services do one or two things. They either help somebody feel better, right? So it heightens pleasure and happiness, or it reduces pain, which also makes them feel happier. Really, truly, every product or service we have solves a problem. It alleviates the pain, or it makes life better. It enhances. So you want to sit down and think about each of these interests, activities, hobbies in terms of their impact. How do they elevate pleasure or happiness? What do they do to bring joy? Or what do they do to minimize challenges, difficulties, or pain? And I know that sounds a little silly, but remember, what did I just say? All businesses either solve a problem, alleviate a pain, or make people feel happier. People pay money for these things. So it's very important that we start to identify the connection between the hobby and the feeling that it can evoke. And that's how we do that. Now, I'll go back to those 2 examples. The first example of the gal that they said, oh, makeup, like, we would love for you to make it. Well, why? It's, well, you've done my makeup in the past on a girls' night, and it was the happiest hour sitting there chatting with you. And I remember just feeling so beautiful when it was done. And I'm not good at that. I don't have a lot of self-confidence, but you made me feel absolutely beautiful when I looked in the mirror, and it made me so happy that night. Okay, so that's alleviating pain and heightening pleasure at the same time. Or the logistics. Well, I just love going to your house because everything's so visually pleasing because you've got everything organized in the right place and you have these cute little labels on everything to know where to go. And I would love that in my house. And I would love the sense of peace and calm of everything having its place. See, so in his case, he was creating that peace of mind. He was reducing that anxiety and stress related to clutter and chaos and confusion. So you really want to look at those connection points. All right, now moving on to step 3. You have to ask yourself, how could you solve the problem or alleviate a pain for people with this interest? So now you start to think to yourself, okay, how could I turn that into a product or a service? So in the case of my friend with the makeup, she said, well, I could just offer people a consultation and ask them what they're looking for and then make a list of the 5 or 10 beauty products that I think they should go get based on what I did with them, right? And show them, and they could go buy them themselves and get them on discount. And what a great value, because I can show them that how to save money and at the same time how to do their application. And we could record the video so they could go back and know what to do, and they'd have their own personal video so they could learn how to do it for their face. Instead of watching random YouTube videos, they'd have a very specific video for themselves. Very cool idea, right? The other gentleman said, well, I could go over and offer my time and do an inventory of everything they need and then tell them what I would charge to redo a garage or this sort of thing, and tell them what kinds of, tools and products they should get in order to organize this, because I've done so much research on it, and I could save them a lot of money so they don't waste time on, storage products that don't work. Okay, amazing. There we go. Really great ideas. Really great ideas to help people. So you start brainstorming. Now, I will tell you from experience, the ideas you come up with, the initial ideas that you come up with on how you're going to serve your clients tend to not ultimately be how you serve them. It ends up evolving over time. But you need to start somewhere. And I'll give you a beautiful example. So Work It Daily, our site now, right? We're literally the only career coaching phone app. We're like the ideal social distancing career coaching company. When I started out, I was in career coaching in private practice. And I would just host. I would say, well, I got my career coaching certification. I'm going to just meet with people and start doing these sessions, because my thought was, well, I can help people in an hour. I'll sit and talk with them and figure it all out. That's how I started the practice. Over time, I noticed that in order to be efficient with people, I would need to inventory them and understand and have what I call a professional strengths profile about a person. So over time, over these session after session, I saw patterns in what I needed to know about my clients, and I put together this huge professional strengths assessment. And I started asking people to fill it out, and then we would get together, and in that first session, I would interpret their results for them. This became so popular that it became what the business was. I didn't do the additional coaching over time. Instead, I would just offer these professional strength profile packages so that people could have a really in-depth understanding of who they are, what they were about, and help them narrow in and make some decisions about what careers they might like to pursue that match their strengths. And this is how I was able to start to launch the business. It evolved over time, but I didn't have that in the beginning. I had to work with the clients in order to get there. Right? But you start with something, just some kind of idea of how you could help people, which leads to step number 4, offering your services for free. So yes, even after I went and got certified as a career coach, and after I had had decades of experience in recruiting and HR, the first clients that I did this with were a hobby career. It was a side hustle. My full-time gig was consulting for corporations. I was still doing staff training and development on a contract basis for some of my former employers. That's where I got my money. So in the beginning, I would do these coaching sessions with people for free, and in exchange for a reference, right, or a recommendation. And I didn't do it forever. I just did it with a small group of people to gain my experience, to get their recommendations, and to get my confidence, but also to start to fine tune my service offering, or maybe you have a product offering, right? So you're going to want to do this. Think of it as a working education, Remember, experiments never fail. So this is your experimental or testing phase of your business, which is important because in fancy terms, you're trying to find something called your product market fit or your service market fit. You're trying to figure out whatever you're selling, how can you tweak it, fine tune it so it matches the people that you want to sell to. Now, finally, once you do that, you will be ready to start selling. And my advice to you is to start with a super low price point. And this is probably the scariest thing. And I still remember it being scary for me the first time I priced it and asked people for money. There's just something about it that feels intimidating. I know. So that's why you go low. Because if you can completely exceed their expectations for that price point, you're going to get a lot of satisfied customers. Maybe you're not going to make as much money as you'd like, but that's not going to stay low forever. You're just going to sell for a short period of time. One, to get comfortable asking for money, and two, to gauge your interest in whether or not this is what you want to pursue to a larger degree or not, right? Notice nowhere in here I said, get your website set up and get your marketing materials ready and build your business cards and none of that. I don't want you doing any of that with this. All I want you to do is go out there and work with a small group of people, eventually to the point that you can ask for a little money and see what you think of the whole thing. Because I would say, and I can't give like hardcore numbers, but there's just as many people that do this and go, yeah, it's fun, but I want to keep it my hobby. I actually don't think this is something that I would want to do for money. And then there's some people that go, okay, this is amazing. I can think of 10 more ways I'd want to make money. And I want to go ahead and move forward in that, right? Remember what I said, it's called a hobby, career, or side hustle. We're not going to throw ourselves entirely into it. We're going to take our time because I've seen people say, no, this is what I'm going to be. It's going to be my full-time thing. And then realize it's really not right for them. And then you do feel like a failure. You do feel like you've had a setback. So it's much better to take your time, just charge a smaller rate, engage your interest for a little bit. Okay. All right. Now with that in mind, here's what I want you to think about after that. Let the results drive you forward. I explained the story to you that once I started charging, I was able to start to fine tune what I was offering. And I would always look at my service offerings and say, what can I make better? How can I exceed expectations? And, over time, it enabled me to write a book, right? Everything that I learned while being a career coach and perfecting my professional strengths model, I became a career coach. I wrote a book on that piece of it, and eventually led me to starting a business. So for me, this really, my original side hustle, my original hobby career of being a career coach is how I ended up with this business. But it wasn't overnight. It was me letting the results drive me forward. It was me validating, I do like this. And I can customize how I do this and I can feel satisfied. And now I want to learn more. And now I'm seeing more opportunities. And out of that came this idea of how do I drop the financial, the physical boundaries to getting really good career coaching? How do I make sure that not just the elite, not just the wealthy get career coaching? But I never would have figured that out if I didn't start out with this as my hobby, career, and my side hustle. And it's not to say that everybody's hobby, career, side hustle will end up that way, but I'm telling you, if you let the results drive you forward, there's a good chance you'll ultimately end up on the path that you want to be on and even possibly make it your full-time gig, which is pretty exciting, I have to say. All right, I have a couple of tips for you regarding this. Tip number one, don't let your ego stop you. So people get all excited about an idea and then they sleep on it and they wake up in the morning and they say, oh, that was a dumb idea. I don't want to embarrass myself. People are going to laugh at me. They're not going to like it. Folks, that's just your lizard brain, your ancient brain, trying to talk you out of it, worried about looking stupid. You can't look stupid. What did I say? Experiments never fail. But this is why so many good ideas don't get done, because people chicken out because they let their ego get the best of them because they worry about what other people think. That is ridiculous. Do not let your ego win. Don't give up, okay? And the second thing regarding that is play up your nerding factor. One of the easiest ways to get over this ego piece about I'm going to be embarrassed to tell people or tell my friends or family that I'm doing this because what if it doesn't work out, right? That's where the ego gets in. People are going to expect it to be a success. And if it's not a success, I'm going to look stupid. First of all, no, you're not. People don't care that much about you. I'll be honest. We just don't. We're all too busy about ourselves, right? But the secret is to talk about the fact that you nerd out on it. So remember I said it's a hobby or an interest? What you tell people is, I really nerd out on this. I really care about it. I really love it. So I thought I'd see if I couldn't do some kind of side hustle or hobby career. Might not turn into anything, but it's just tied to something I care so deeply about. I just want to explore it. There you go. There it is. Go on the offensive, be proactive, explain to people why you're passionate about this, why you nerd out on it, and why you felt like you should try to explore if you could do something with it. No one's going to fault you for that. Not at all. And that is the secret of pushing the ego aside and moving forward with this. Because remember, experiments never fail. All right. Couple of quotes that I thought I'd put in here before I take your questions. Necessity is the mother of all invention. There are going to be a lot of amazing side hustles and hobby careers that come out of this crisis that become incredible companies. Absolutely incredible companies. I've told you this before. After building up my career coaching practice, I looked at my husband in 2008 in the financial crisis and said, I want to start a company to help thousands and millions of people. People need to know this stuff. School taught them everything except how to get a job and build a career. And I want to figure out how to do it online. There's got to be an affordable way to do this. And lucky for me, my husband said, go get them, right? But it was just a hobby career up until then. I was a consultant building a career coaching practice that got really busy. And all of a sudden, there was this chance. So remember, necessity is the mother of all invention. Don't discount your hobby career or your side hustle. You never know what course of events will lead it to become a huge opportunity to create something amazing. You could be the next Facebook. You don't know. You don't know that, but it's not going to happen if you don't try, because you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, folks. In the words of Wayne Gretzky, so true. So I'm hoping today that I inspired you to just go figure this out. Go find something and pursue it. You're going to learn so much about yourself, about business, about life, about people. And it's fun. It's fun if you let it be fun. If you push your ego aside and say, the nerd in me on this subject is interested in this, and I'd rather spend my time doing this than something else, right? But don't, miss out on the chance, because you just never know. But it definitely won't happen if you don't try. Okay? All right. And then finally, it's our favorite quote. This is our very own: experience plus learn equals grow. This is the real reason to do a hobby career or a side hustle. It's going to make you smarter. It's going to expand your perspective. It's going to make you a better employee. There's just no downside to trying to do a side hustle or a hobby career. There's no downside here, all upside in terms of learning and growing. So no excuses. This is why I say every single person should have one, multiple ones if they can swing it. All right, wonderful. So I'm going to take some questions now, and I just want to remind you all that resources, job search resources, career resources, they are all front and center on our resource page, and they are all 100% free over at Work It Daily. If you need help, then that's the place to go. So be sure to click the link and get yourself a resource for the upcoming long weekend so that you can spend a little time developing your career skill set. All right, now we're going to take questions, and we're going to start with our first one over on YouTube. Should you state your hobby career on your professional resume or on LinkedIn? Ooh, awesome question. So not in the main work history. We don't want that front and center in the work history. And the reason for that is that if you make that your most recent job, recruiters are going to wonder, okay, well, are you going to leave us as soon as that career gets bigger? So you want to put that in the additional experience section of your resume, which is at the end of your resume, and just explain that it's a side hustle. It's a part-time hobby career. You don't want to emphasize it too much. So if you put it in the work history, they're going to question it. But if you put it in the additional experience section, then it looks like a wonderful little thing that you can discuss. Jennifer over on LinkedIn says, I do have a side hustle and I'm also unemployed. Where and how do you put the side hustle on your resume, in the work experience section or after it? So again, if your side hustle is related to your work that you're unemployed from, Jennifer, then you could put it in the work history. However, I would not put owner. I would put independent contractor, or I would put consultant. But if your side hustle is in no way related to the work that you want to be doing full-time, then please do not put it in the resume or in the work history of the LinkedIn. You put it in the additional experience section of the resume. And on LinkedIn, you can put it down in some of their other areas like projects, for example. There's a project section that you could put it in. But you don't want to list it in the main work history unless it's absolutely related to the kind of work that you do. All right? Over on YouTube, January asks, if my side hustle or hobby is a blog, can I immediately add it to my CV, especially to fill the gap? Again, if it's related to the work that you want to be doing, yes. If it is not related in any way, no. It does not go onto your work history. It would go into the additional experience section. Also, if you're running a blog, again, avoid things like owner. Instead, what you would put blogger right there, and you could put in parentheses independent contractor, something like that. So you would list it that way. Now, if that's work you want to be doing, then yeah, put it in the resume and make it your more recent one. But if it's not what you want your full-time to be, then it shouldn't go there. Okay, great questions, team. How can you manage a side job while a full-time job takes 12 hours a day instead of 8? So that's concerning to me. First of all, what the heck are you doing that's taking 12 hours a day? We need to work on that. Get on over to Work It Daily. Let's talk about that. That's way too many hours. But if you're taking that much time, you're right. You don't have any brain power left during the week. What I would tell you is schedule it in your free time. So if you have your weekends off or you're giving off one day a week or whatever it is, really pick the time of day when you're most alert and happy. So it's interesting. Some people are morning people. I'm a morning person. My highest energy level and highest feelings of happiness are before 3 p.m. After 3 p.m., I'm a steady decline, right? That's when I got to do the mindless work. My energy level, all of that just starts to tank. So me working on a side hustle in the evening actually doesn't work for me. So what I do with a lot of my side hustles is I save them for the weekends, and I get up and I use that precious time in the morning on the weekends when I'm awake and happy to work on it. Or I'll get up early 1 or 2 mornings a week and use that extra time in the early morning hours to work on it as well. And so you want to pick those times and say, well, I don't have as many hours to spend. I want to look at my free time hours, and I want to look at the quality hours that I have available. And I want to use my quality hours to be able to work on my side hustle, because that's when it's going to bring you the most joy. Now, if you're a nighttime person, well, then, hey, it might work in your favor to work on it at night. And that's when you would block out. So look for the quality hours within the free time that you have, and know that 2 hours is better than no hours. 1 hour is better than no hours. 30 minutes a week is better than no minutes per week. Don't give up because you don't feel like you have enough hours. If you were to just be consistent and spend an hour a week on it, 52 weeks later, that's 52 hours. That's a lot. That's a lot. But you'll find too, once you get started, you'll make more time for it. You'll find more ways to make time for it because you really get into it. But you got to start somewhere and take whatever hours you can. Okay? All right. David said, should you have 2 LinkedIn accounts, one for your main job and one for your side hustle? No, David, it's a really bad idea to do that. And I'm so glad you asked that question. You don't want to divide that up because your followers and your connections on your LinkedIn profile, you don't want them split between 2 places. You want them all in one place. So your LinkedIn profile should always be for your main role. It should not be for your hobby, career, or your side hustle. I do not recommend that. But here's what you can do, David. Choose another social media platform to be the place where you're going to push out content and information around your side hustle. So you might decide that you're going to create a Facebook group or make your Facebook page all about your side hustle. You might decide it's Instagram. You might do some videos on YouTube. One of the biggest ones right now is TikTok. That would be another great place. So choose another platform to have that and just build your side hustle instead. But on LinkedIn, it should be your main job. LinkedIn is truly your resume. It's just a digital resume. So you want to leave that one alone and find other outlets for the side hustle. Okay. Jean on YouTube says, I used to offer my consulting for free for nonprofits. It was hard to then start charging. Thoughts around that? Yeah, so that's why, Jean, in my lesson, I said you start free for a limited time, and then you charge a very low rate. So with the nonprofits, like you said, I was free. At some point, you say to them, look, I've worked with 20 nonprofits, and we've had this kind of success. normally people would charge you X dollars for this service, but I'm only going to charge you this. It's a fraction of what you would spend. So help them understand how much experience you have with the nonprofits, how much it would normally cost them to work with somebody who was going to charge them a full rate, and then charge them just a little bit for you to get comfortable. What happens over time, everybody, just so you know, is that you start charging and you get better and better, and you start to get more clients and you don't have enough bandwidth. So once you have more clients requesting than time, that's when you know it's time to raise your rates. And it'll just be very natural. You'll realize that, okay, you need to raise your rates in order to work with fewer customers and make the best use of your time. And that will slowly happen over time. And that's how it happens for everyone. So that would be my advice for you. Okay, on LinkedIn, Ashraf is asking, how do you add 3 jobs in the same time when they had been done in the same time? What's the professional way to demonstrate it in a resume? Okay, so if you're thinking about multiple opportunities, then what you need to do is come up with, you probably did similar type of work for each one. So there's a common job title that you could use for each one. Maybe you were an independent contractor, or you were a consultant, you know, a digital marketing consultant or operations consultant, project manager, whatever it is, you would list it. And then unfortunately, if you can tie it to a company, you can, but if you can't on LinkedIn, then you would just say multiple organizations, and you would list those organizations underneath the job title. And then you would list your bullet points of results with each of that. So that way you can group them all together into a certain period of time, but be able to show all the accomplishments for all of those organizations at the same time. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about, over on YouTube, the question is, can you talk about marketing your hobby career? Absolutely. So the best way to market a hobby career is to start by word of mouth. And the way you do word of mouth is through social media content. So what you want to do is take some pictures of you working on your hobby career, or, you know, if it's something that you've designed, it's a craft, it's something like that. You want to put together some photographic or even a video of you doing it, and you want to post it on social media and say to folks, all right, you know, I'm thinking about a side hustle. You know, I'm thinking about starting this as a part-time hobby career. Always been interested in this, and tell them your story. Tell them about what got you interested in this idea. Why do you nerd out on it? Why do you get excited about it? What kind of pain does it alleviate? How does it build happiness? Tell the story. Get people emotionally invested in this idea of you potentially pursuing it as a career. Throw up some pictures to go with it and say, what do y'all think? That's how you start. And then what you do is very regularly, which is why I'd rather you start a side hustle on any channel besides LinkedIn. You start posting regularly. Here's the latest thing I designed. Here's an idea that I came across. Here's something I learned while I was researching this for my hobby career. You essentially give people an entry or doorway into your mind and into the world of your hobby career, and document your progress as you develop it. And I love the documenting part because people feel like they're on the journey with you. And people love to get behind somebody who's really starting to build momentum. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have everything all together. Notice I didn't say do an ad spend and figure out how to build an ad. You're not there yet. What you need to do is get people rallying behind your passion and your idea for this, and let them see that you are more than dipping your toe in the water. You're actually devoting some hours to this, and why you're devoting some hours to this. This is how you build your trust and credibility, so that when you say, all right, folks, here's my first creation, what do you think? You will let me know. I'll give you a great example. I actually know another career coach. She loves to design jewelry, specifically earrings. So when she started this process, she wrote a beautiful long explanation on Facebook about what got her into specifically making earrings. It was an absolutely beautiful story. And then she just started sharing, hey, when I remember those pro bono clients, here's a set of earrings I made. A bride asked me to make them for all of her bridesmaids. And she showed that and told the amazing story. And here's a set of earrings that friend had me made because her friend was a cancer survivor. And she would just kind of show the stuff that she had done. And what happened was people got so into her story, you know what happened. They messaged her and said, do you think you could make something like this? Do you think you could do something like this? People just love the novelty. And she made it so affordable. She would say, and I only charged X dollars. People were like, well, gee, that doesn't seem like a lot. And she slowly but surely just built it up. That's it. No pressure, having fun, doing what she loved and sharing it with the world. That is the right way to market a hobby career. Very important. Documenting your journey. Another question from LinkedIn. I set up my hobby career, but still I can't get real clients. Any advice? So I guess my first question is, can you give it away? Are people willing to do it for free? So if you can give it away, if you can get clients who say, yeah, you can do that for me for free, then there's possibly something there. Then you want to ask them, would you recommend me? And you also want to ask them, if I was to charge for this, what would you be willing to pay and why? And say to them, I need you to be honest with me. I need to know what it would take for you to be willing to, pay some money for this. And what do you think would be reasonable for me to charge? So that way people will be really honest with you about that. And if you can't get people to do it for free, if they're saying, I don't have time or I just can't, then you probably have the wrong concept. And what I would do instead is go back to people and say, this is something really interesting to me, but I can't seem to find a way to help people. How do you think I could make this better? What do you think people need instead to get them to want, to do this? Even before I even, charge, just get them to do it. And then once you get them to do it, say, what else do you think I need to add to get people to pay? And what do you think people will reasonably pay? And then you can decide whether or not that's worthwhile to you. Right? Because maybe you can't get it to a place where people will pay what you want, which is what I went back to earlier. And you said, all right, this isn't working out for me. Good thing I didn't spend crazy amounts of dollars trying to market this business. Instead, I did my product market fit, my due diligence, and realized it doesn't really suit me. So I'm going to pivot and find a different hobby career. Right? So again, it sounds to me like you need to fix that out more. Do you know what I mean? Fix that up more. All right, great. All right, team, we're going to pivot here because I wanted to leave time today for additional questions. So we're going to take general career Q&A questions now before the long weekend here in the US. So let's start with a YouTube question from Frederick that says, what if you're currently employed but are ashamed of your current employer? That's a rough one. So obviously you're looking for a new job if you're ashamed by your current employer, but it's very important to show right now if you are working. So you have to put that employer's name down. I think that the bigger question is to be prepared to answer the question about your employer, about why are you looking to leave? Because you want to find a tactful way to say that the company isn't aligned with your beliefs. I would never use the word ashamed about an employer. And the reason for that is that you're saying they're bad and you're good, that you're better than them. When we're ashamed of something, what makes it shameful and what makes us embarrassed is we think that it makes us look bad. It's our ego when we're ashamed, when we feel shame. It's our ego. So I challenge you and say, this just isn't the right place for you. It doesn't align with your beliefs. It's not a good fit. But I would never say ashamed, especially to an employer, right? So, you want to move, you want to change, but at least you have a job that you can put on your resume and your LinkedIn profile. What you want to work on is why you want to move towards a company that has beliefs that are better aligned with your own beliefs. And what are those? And a company that does things that is more in line with how you want to add value in the world. So it's all in the way that you share that and present that. Does that make sense? But don't hide it. The fact that you're working is key. There's a really amazing quote out there, and I'm not going to get it 100% right, but your worst is someone else's best, right? Your awful is someone else's ideal. And that is the truth, folks. We can always go out and find somebody that would take our situation any day of the week. So my point is, you are ashamed of this company, but somebody else would kill for that job and wouldn't be ashamed. And that's what we have to remind ourselves. So just remember that and focus on looking for that new work and talking about what you're looking for in terms of beliefs and values, and not so much about what you currently don't have with that employer. Okay? Awesome. Should you have testimonials on your resume? No, absolutely not. Please don't. I beg you. Every recruiter is begging you not to do that for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's a waste of space. We don't believe it. Second of all, it's super self-promotional and tacky. You look really narcissistic when you do that. Testimonials do not go on a resume. Facts go on a resume. Accomplishments go on a resume. I'm glad you asked that question. Do not put testimonials on a resume. All right. LinkedIn. Diana on LinkedIn asks, if you have 2 to 3 years with jobs that are only several months, should I include them in my resume? So I think what Diana is asking is, over the last couple of years, all her jobs were sort of project-based, a couple at a time. Again, similar to an earlier question that would ask, I tend to counsel people inside Work It Daily to put them together, if possible, into a grouping. So I'll often have people who do project assignments over a couple of years, and it's all the same kind of project. In which case, I put whatever kind of project they're working on and whatever kind of expertise, and they group them all together. And every bullet point in the work history is, okay, I did 3 months of this at this company and saved them this money. I did 5 months at this company and we reduced it by X percent. And so it's always quantifying what you did on each project and then rolling it up into one large group is a great way to do it. Derek on LinkedIn asks, what's the best way to explain being fired prior to the pandemic? So that's a wonderful question. In fact, we have an entire course called Fired to Hired inside Work It Daily because it is so important if you've been fired to know what to say. I cannot stress this enough. If anyone here is listening today has been fired from a job, you need to work through how to explain that. And it's very important that you own part of what happened. And this is hard for people to hear because a lot of times we feel like we were fired unfairly and it wasn't our fault. But the reality is recruiters and hiring managers are taught to know there's 3 sides to every story: yours, the employer's, and the truth, that the truth is somewhere in the middle. And so if you're to say, I got fired, but it wasn't my fault, we're not going to buy it. If you're to say, well, I got fired, but it's because they did this, this, and this, we're not going to buy it. I need you to take ownership of what happened in some way. So you have to work through that. And Work It Daily, when our members come in and they work through it, we actually make them write it out and the coaches work with them until we really have a good, balanced, objective explanation. And then they rehearse it to the point that they're sick of it, to the point that they're ready when they get asked that question. They can't wait for someone to ask them the question in the interview because they're so ready. And ironically, you find when you're so ready to answer that question, they almost never ask you, or you give them the answer and they don't even bat an eyelash because you've really worked it out in your head. But essentially, you need to follow something called the experience, learn, and grow model, which is you say, okay, here's what happened that led up to the firing. Here's what I learned from the experience. And here's how I've grown, meaning here's how I'm going to make sure it never happens again. And when you have that right framework and it's rehearsed and it's perfected with the help of a career coach, you'll be fine. But you need to do it. Anybody out there that's been fired, you need to do that. That is a must-do exercise. Ask any Work It Daily member who's been fired. They'll tell you it's a game changer. How do you show you've had a varied, broad skill set without being told you're overqualified? So I'm not a fan of showing a varied, broad skill set because science shows it doesn't help you. The truth is, study after study shows that we trust specialists more than we trust generalists. And the odd thing about it is that somebody has a specialty. If we know that somebody has depth of knowledge in a particular area and they really prove it as a specialty, we automatically assume they're intelligent in other areas too. So we will assume, well, if you're that good at that, then by default, you're probably good at this, this, and this too. When we see that somebody has the capacity to have the depth of knowledge to be a specialist, we elevate their overall intelligence. So that's why I don't encourage you to say you're a generalist. I encourage you to talk about your specialty. And then by default, when they say, wow, you're just what we need because you have this area of expertise that we really need, by default, they'll know you're capable of doing other things too. And that's how you avoid the overqualified piece. All right. Great questions. Wow, great questions today. It always goes so fast with you all. Listen, I just want to say thank you so much. We have been broadcasting now for a while on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on LinkedIn. And we couldn't do it without all of you. So please keep the questions coming, the comments coming, submitting ideas for new topics. I'm excited to say that we're coming out with a monthly calendar, and soon you'll be able to sign up using the LinkedIn events in order to get notifications and reminders about these events so you can come join us. Plus, it's a way for you to get the recording if you miss. If you can't attend live, you'll be able to get the recording. So stay on the lookout for that. But again, couldn't do this without all of you. And I'm so glad to be here every Tuesday and Thursday with each and every one of you. All right. For those of you here in the US, I hope you have a wonderful long weekend. Be good to yourself. Press play on life. And for all the rest of you out there, please stay safe, stay healthy in these times. And please come back. Come join us again next Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Take care. And remember what I always tell you, if you want to win, you got to work it daily.